for fraction. We know you love fractions, so let's get to it, alright? So we got going on here today. Alright, so a couple of things here. First of all, I want to point out here. Right now, this is what you know. 2 to the third, that's just 2 times 2 times 2, and that equals 8. You should know that. Hopefully, you do know that. 2 times 2 times 2 equals 8. Now we're introducing something new, and it's called taking a root. Now, we've done square roots, right? The square root of 4 is 2. Now, you know that's a perfect square, but the reason that's 4 is because what number times itself equals 4, and that is 2. Now, the cool thing about square roots is they're so common we don't write that we're looking for 2 of the same number. But now we're going to use higher order or higher roots, so we're going to have to write the order up here. So now we're looking for what number times itself 3 times equals 8. Well, 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. So the third root of 8 is 2. This is the root here. It can be anything, okay? This is just here. This is just written algebraically. Another way for you to look at it, we have our base to a certain exponent, all right? That exponent, when we do it over here, that's taking the root. And just so we're all clear, the root of all evil? Brust. All right, so let's move on, see what we got. So now we know we have these things and we have radicals, all right, which we're very comfortable with. Now these look nasty, but we have radicals. We know what they look like. Now we are going to use another way to write radicals is using rational exponent or fractions, all right, our favorite. So if you look down here, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks and then we'll do some. The root of what number we're looking for, it's actually the same thing as putting that in a fractional form. 1 over whatever root I'm taking. So if I want the third root of bean, it's the same thing as taking bean to the 1/3 power. All right? So let's take a look over here and see what we got. So this, remember, it's not written, it's a 2. So now this is like saying 9 to the 1/2 power. Over here I have 81. I want to find the fourth root. That's like saying 81 to the 1/4 power. All right? This is negative 27. Now, we should include that in parentheses so that we understand everything in here. I want the third root of that, so the 1/3 power of negative 27. Now, down here we have something that's kind of interesting. We have whatever's inside, we're taking to the third power. And whatever's on the outside, we're taking the exponent. Now I'm going to write this a couple of ways. So just so we're clear, this is like whatever's in here to the 1/4 power. And you remember your exponent rules, power to a power is multiply. So really that's just saying x to the 3/4 power. All right? Whatever I had inside to the 1/4 power, and I did the power rule, x to the 3/4 power. Remember, the number on top is multiplying that by itself 3 times, and then the number on the bottom is what number times itself 4 times gives us the answer. All right, let's take a look. So let's do it backwards. So I want the 25 to the 1/3. So I want the third root of 25. Over here, I'm taking this whole thing, so that goes in my radicand, negative 3x. And I want the fifth root. All right? Down here, I have this whole thing here, y minus 5. Now notice I'm raising it to the third power, and I want to take the fifth root. The fifth root of it. So that's changing between radicals and rational exponents. All right, stick with me here. I'm going to throw out to you some conceptual elixir, what we call it in the business. Ask Mr. Brust about his conceptual elixir. He'll tell you all the good stuff about this. So right here, I have exponents, which we know. So this is 2 times 2, which is 4. This is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. This is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 16. This is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 32. Down here, it's the same thing. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Interesting. Same answer. We have negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. That's a negative 8. Negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative is a negative. Interesting. Different answers. Down here, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative is a negative. Negative times a negative is a positive. Interesting. Fourth root, same answer. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative times a negative, positive times a negative is a negative. Times a negative is a positive. Times a negative is a negative. Very interesting. Notice what we have going on here. Third and fifth, those are odd numbers, right? Odd numbers, different answers. So when we come up here, the square root of 4. Well, let's take a look. Where is the square root of 4? The square root of 4, what two numbers times itself? We have an answer here, and we had an answer here. Negative 2 times negative 2, so that would work. Or positive 2 times positive 2. Very interesting. Radical 3, the third root of 8. Third root of 8 is only an answer here, so the only answer we have is 2. The fourth root of 16. The fourth root of 16. Let's see, here is 16, so it could be 2. Or here is 16, it could be negative 2. Down here, 32. All right, 32 we have here. That is 2. Just 1, because down here it's negative 32, and that is not the same thing. Let's go down here. The square root of negative 4. Is there a number I can multiply by itself and get a negative number? No, because a negative times a negative is a positive. That doesn't work. There is no real root. All right, that's what we would say. There's no real root that would get us there. How about negative 8? Well, negative 8 is right here. What number times itself 3 times equals negative 8? Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, right there. All right? How about negative 16? Is there a number I can multiply 4 times and get a negative number? No, because a negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative is a negative, times a negative is a positive. No way we can do this, so again, no real root. And down here, the fifth root of negative 32, and you can see right here that is negative 2. So here's what I'm trying to hint at. All right? We have some very special things going on. The first thing we have going on is this. Slowly down. Come on, Shade. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. So when we have even roots, so 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever it is, if you have an even root, here's the rule. When a is less than 0, there's no real roots. So for example, when we have negatives in here, there are no real roots. When a is 0 exactly, there's only one root, and that root is going to be 0. Because the square root of 0 is 0. The square root of anything is 0. All right? Excuse me. The square root of any root of 0 is 0. When a is a positive, there are two real roots. Notice here we have a positive and a positive. These are evens. 4 and 2, these are evens. We had two answers, the positive or the negative, two real roots. Now here's something odd. Get it? You see what I did there? Odd. Odd roots. When we have odd roots, it doesn't make any difference. There's only going to be one answer. All right? If I had a positive number inside, I get a positive answer. If I have a negative answer inside, I get a negative answer. But there's only one real root. All right? So sorry for that conceptual elixir. I know sometimes that stuff is boring for you, but I think it's good for you to see from time to time. So let's get down to the root of it. Sorry, I just can't stop. All right, so here we go. I want to find, well, that is not going to work. Let's try this one. I want to find the square root of 64. In other words, what number times itself equals 64? Well, you probably know this one. 8 times 8. I'm looking for a number that is multiplied twice. When I find that number, that's my answer. But remember, this is even. And remember our even rule. If I have an even root, then I'm going to have two possible answers. When I'm finding the roots, I have two possible answers. The positive or the negative. Let's go down here. I have the third root of negative 27. All right, what number times itself equals a negative 27? It's an odd. That means I'm only going to have one answer, and that is going to match the sign of the inside. It's going to be negative. So right now I'm going to say what number times itself? Well, let's see. Negative 3 times 9 equals negative 27. And 9 is negative 3 times negative 3. And look here, negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 is 27 there, or is negative 27. Therefore, our real third root of negative 27 is negative 3. All right, let's do this last one. We want to take the fourth root of negative 16. All right, can we take an even root of a negative number? We cannot. Therefore, it's no real root. Is this important to write? No real root? It sure is. Soon enough, Mr. Bruss is going to be telling you about imaginary numbers and things like that. And so it's going to be real important right now that you understand you can't do these right now. All right? It's a bad idea. And speaking of bad idea, take a look at this famous commercial from the 80s. I love that bad idea jeans. All right? I think of every time I hang out with Mr. Kelly, I think of bad idea jeans because that boy is full of bad ideas. Hey, let's do all this extra work. That's a bad idea, Mr. Kelly. All right. So let's do some of these simplifying. We want to find the sixth root of 64. First of all, now when I simplify, I'm going to be honest with you. We're just going to have the principal root, what we call the principal root. So when it's an even, all right, and we're going to have one answer whether it's even or odd when we simplify. When we solve and find the roots, we'll have both if there are two. All right, but when we're simplifying, we're just going to have one, the principal one, whether that's positive or negative. All right, so here's how I start. 64. I want 6 factors that are the same. I don't know, but I know that 8 times 8 is 64. Well, that's 2 of the same, but I need 6. So I'm going to keep going. I know that 4 times 2 is 8, and I know that 4 times 2 is 8 on this one. I have 4 that still don't have 6 of the same number. I know this 4 is 2 times 2, and I got to bring this 2 down. And I know that this 4 is 2 times 2. Whoa, 2 times 2. And I bring that 2 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 of the same number. That's what I'm looking for. That number is 2. So the sixth root of 64 is 2. All right. Over here, we have the fourth root of 16. All of that to the negative 7th power. I'm going to be honest with you. Anytime you have these where you double, it's way easier to take the root first. All right, because we're dealing with smaller numbers. So we want the fourth root of 16. I know that's 8 times 2. I know that 8 is 4 times 2 times 2. I know that 4 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. All right, so now we can see clearly that the fourth root of 16 is 2. So over here, I have 2 to the negative 7th power. Well, that is, remember our negative exponent rules, I take it to the bottom. That's 2 to the 7th. All right, so we have to do 2 7 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64, times 2 is 128. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 over 128. All right. Down here, we're going to do negative 27 to the 2/3. I'm going to rewrite this. All right. So I want the third root of negative 27, and then I'm going to square my answer. So let's see. What is the third root of negative 27? Well, negative 3 times 9. And I know that this is negative 3 times negative 3. So if we take a look, the third root of negative 27 is negative 3. And then we want to square that, so that's negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. Positive 9. All right, over here, again, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this negative exponent. I know that a negative exponent takes it from wherever it's in the fraction and changes its position. It's in the denominator. I'm going to take it to the numerator. So now this is just 81 to the 3/4. All right. So I want to find the fourth root of 81. and then I'm going to take that to the third power. All right, so let's take a look. Now, by now, some of you are figuring out some tricks maybe. You're remembering some stuff. But you need to understand, I need to see work on this. All right? If I don't see work, I'm going to assume you just put this in your calculator, and that's not cool on some of these. If it says show work, you better show your work. So the fourth root of 81 is 3. 3 to the third is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. All right? All right, so we're going to put these in our calculator. The easiest way to put these in our calculator, there is a root button. If you go to the math, all right, there's a root button. You can take roots, but I think the easiest way to do these is to change them to rational exponents. So this is 187 to the 3/4 power. Remember that the one I'm taking the power is on top, all right? So let's take a look at how that would look over here. All right, I'm going to put parentheses around it. Always safe bet. I'm going to raise it, use the caret button, to the 3 divided by 4 power, press enter, and I got 50.568. That's going to make that 50.57. So 50.57 for this one. Down here, all right, same thing. Going to go into my calculator. 1 divided by, all right, put the parentheses. Now this one I definitely need the parentheses because I have a negative. 17, all of that to the 3/5 power. Press enter. So negative 0.182, the 2 makes that an 8, so negative 0.18. Sorry about that. For some reason that's the default. But it should highlight our, down here, the root of all your problems, the Grinch. Kelly, take a look at that. I love that picture. Great picture, Mr. Kelly. Bad idea, Mr. Kelly. Bad idea, jeans. All right, so now we're going to do some solving. Let's start with one we've done before, all right? 2x squared equals 18. I have exponents and multiply. I need to undo multiply first. Remember, or do GEMDOS backwards, sad Meg. So I have x squared equals 9. The opposite, okay, now I'm going to show you something different over here. I'm going to do this two ways. Usually we're doing this, the square root of 9, right? I'm going to use rational exponents. I want this exponent, when I get down here, my exponent, I don't write it, it's a 1. So what can I multiply 2 by to get 1? I multiply it by its reciprocal, 1/2. So I'm going to raise this to the 1/2, and 9 to the 1/2 is the square root of 9. It's the same thing. So the square root of 9 is 3. Oh, but we need to remember, this is an even root, and we're finding the root, we're solving, so it could be 3 or it could be negative 3. An even root, we are solving and finding both. All right, let's come on over here then. Use what we've just learned now. I have grouping and I have exponents. I have to do the exponents first. Same thing I did here. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So this exponent is going to be raised to the 3/2, and if I do it on this side, I need to raise this side to the 3/2. So now I have a minus 10 equals, all right, so my root is 2. That's even. That means I could have a positive and negative answer. So I'm going to have positive or negative. So let's do the square root. This is the same thing as writing the square root of 4, all right, to the third power. So let's do what that is. A minus 10 equals plus or minus, the square root of 4 is 2. 2 to the third power is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. All right? So that's the same thing as 2 to the third power, which is 8. So we could be a positive 8 or it could be a negative 8. Now the opposite of minus 10 is plus 10 due to both sides. And now we're going to have two answers. So we have 8 plus 10 could be 18. Or we have negative 8 plus 10, and that would be negative 2. So we could have two answers because it's an even root. Excuse me. It's an even, it's an even root because we're right here. And therefore, we could have two answers, all right? Let's try the next one. Opposite of plus 36 is subtract 36. X to the 6th equals 64. I want to raise this to the 1/6 power to, cancel that. So now I have x. 6 is a positive, or an even root. Therefore, I'm going to have two answers. And what is the 6th root of 64? Well, we did this one earlier. It was 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So our answer is plus or minus 2. Let's do our last one. I'm going to raise this to the 1/5. So I'm going to raise this to the 1/5. So g plus 10 equals 70 to the 1/5. Now check this out. Is there 5 numbers that multiply to 70 by themselves? No, there's not. So this is going to be a decimal approximation. So before I do my decimal approximation, I'm going to get everything down here. The opposite of plus 10 is minus 10. All right. So now I have g equals 70 to the 1/5. And oh, by the way, it's an odd root. Odd roots mean how many answers? Just one. So now I'm going to take 70 to the 1/5 minus 10. I'm going to put that in my calculator. 70 to the 1/5. 1 divided by 5. And then we add minus 10. Oop, you got to be careful. See, I just fell for that. Once you do that, you got to make sure you go back down. Minus 10 is on the ground with all the bases. So we get negative 7.661. That 1 keeps that a 6, so negative 7.66. All right? So g equals negative 7.66. So you try these right now and see how you do. Great. Here we go. So I want to find the 5th root of negative 243, and then I'm going to take that to the 3rd power. All right? I know that negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 is 243, and that's 5, so the 5th root is negative 3. Negative 3 to the 3rd power is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, which is negative 27. Over here, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. B to the 2/3 equals 4. I'm going to multiply the exponent here by 3/2 because it's the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply this by 3/2. So I want the square root of 4. Now I don't have to write that. All of that to the 3rd power. The square root of 4 is 2. 2 to the 3rd power. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. But what's missing? That's right. That's an even root. Therefore, it could have two answers. So it's 8 or negative 8. Because this could be 2 or negative 2 to the 3rd power. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. There you have it. I hope you do great on this. Pass the master check, and I will see you on the flip side.